The ballroom lights on the cruise ship flickered once. Then darkness swallowed everything. Gasps echoed, glasses shattered, and panic gripped the passengers as the massive ship shuddered and stalled in the middle of the Atlantic. In the chaos, one woman in her early 40s, an iron-willed CEO known for never losing control, froze at the railing, her face pale. But before terror could take over, a single dad in his 30s stepped forward, his young daughter clutching his arm. His next move? It would save every soul on board. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. The silence after the blackout was deafening. Emergency lights sputtered on, casting the luxury cruise ship in a ghostly red glow. Passengers screamed, others ran, tripping over chairs, while the ocean roared outside like a living monster. Amelia Hart, CEO of a tech empire, stood frozen by the railing. "This can't be happening," she whispered, her voice trembling despite her usual composure. The generators hadn't kicked in. The engines were dead. The ship was drifting. In the middle of the chaos, Jack Miller tightened his grip on his daughter's hand. "Stay behind me, Lily," he murmured to the 10-year-old, his voice steady. She nodded, her wide eyes shining with fear. "Somebody do something." Amelia's assistant shrieked, clinging to her boss's arm. "We're stranded in the dark. The captain hasn't said a word." Jack stepped forward, his calm presence slicing through the panic. "Ma'am," he said firmly, addressing Amelia. "The power system must have failed. The engines too. If no one acts now, this whole ship is at risk." Amelia's jaw tightened, her boardroom confidence slipping. "And what exactly do you suggest, Mr. Jack Miller," he replied. "Single dad, electrician, and a guy who's not about to let hundreds of people sink." Passengers stared. Some mocked. "An electrician? On vacation? What's he going to do, change a light bulb?" One man sneered. But Jack ignored the jeers. He crouched beside Lily, brushing her hair back. "You stay here, sweetheart. Be brave for me." Then he turned, eyes locked on Amelia. "Show me where the emergency panels are." Her instinct was to doubt him, yet the steadiness in his voice anchored her fear. For once, the woman who gave orders every day found herself obeying. "Follow me," she whispered. They moved through the trembling crowd, Amelia in heels clutching the railing, Jack steadying her when the ship rocked hard. His kindness wasn't just in words. It was in the way he guided terrified strangers, telling them, "Hold on to something sturdy. Keep calm. You're not alone." By the time they reached the control deck, Amelia's chest was heaving. She turned to Jack, eyes wide. "If you're wrong, we're all—" "I'm not wrong," Jack cut in, rolling up his sleeves. "I've wired entire city blocks. This ship has backup systems buried deep in the hull. They just need the right hands." And as Amelia watched him kneel in front of the sparking control box, sparks flying dangerously close to his face, she realized this stranger might be the only reason any of them lived to see sunrise. The control deck smelled like burning plastic and salt water. Emergency sirens wailed in the distance, muffled by the thick steel walls, and the air felt charged with static as sparks snapped from loose wires dangling like angry snakes. Amelia stood frozen in the doorway, her designer heels clicking nervously against the grated floor. She was a woman who had stood in boardrooms worth billions, who had stared down entire hostile takeovers without blinking. But this was different. This was life or death. Jack didn't flinch. He knelt in front of the panel, his calloused hands steady even as firelight crackled from a frayed breaker. His voice was calm, almost too calm for the chaos around them. "This whole section's fried. he muttered. No wonder the backups didn't trigger. Whoever designed this wiring, they cut corners. Amelia's brow furrowed. Cut corners? This ship cost $500 million. Jack shot her a sharp look. Doesn't matter how much money you throw at a project. If the wrong people sign off, lives get put at risk. And right now, we don't have time for corporate excuses. We have people to save. His words stung. Amelia wasn't used to being talked to that way. But there was no arrogance in Jack's tone, only raw truth. She opened her mouth to argue, but instead she found herself nodding. Behind them, Lily crept in, clutching a stuffed rabbit to her chest. "Dad, are we going to be okay?" Her small voice carried more fear than any of the adults screaming outside. Jack turned instantly, softening. "Hey," he said gently, brushing her hair back. "Look at me, Lily. We're going to be okay. I promise you. But I need to do something important. Can you be my brave girl and keep an eye on Miss Hart for me?" Lily blinked, then nodded, her bottom lip trembling. She grabbed Amelia's hand without hesitation. Amelia, startled, looked down at the child's pale face. I'll stay with her," Amelia whispered, squeezing the little girl's hand. Something about that tiny gesture of trust unsettled her more than the blackout itself. Jack got to work. He pulled a multi-tool from his pocket, something Amelia hadn't even noticed him carrying. Sparks hissed as he stripped wires with quick precision. His eyes narrowed in concentration. His forearms were taut with effort, sweat running down his temple as the ship groaned with another violent tilt. "Jack!" Amelia's voice broke as a loud bang echoed outside. What was that? He didn't look up. Could be the engines shutting down fully, could be seawater breaching somewhere. Below deck. Either way, time's running out. A group of crew members stormed in, their captain among them, a tall, white-haired man whose uniform was damp with sweat. "What's going on here?" he barked, spotting Jack. "Who authorized a passenger in the control deck?" Amelia lifted her chin, regaining her usual CEO tone. "I did. He's the only one who understands what's happening." The captain's eyes hardened. "Ma'am, with respect, this is not—" Jack's voice cut through like a blade. "You lost power. Your backup systems are shot, and right now, your passengers are panicking. Unless you want this ship drifting helplessly into open water, you'll shut up and let me finish." The captain blinked in disbelief. Nobody spoke to him like that. But before he could snap back, one of his officers pointed to the diagnostic screen. "Sir, he's stabilizing the current flow." All eyes turned. Slowly, the systems flickered back to life, one by one. The red glow of emergency lighting was replaced with a steady pulse of white. The ship was still dead in the water, but some of the panic subsided as the corridors lit up again. Amelia exhaled shakily. You're really doing this." Jack didn't answer. His hands were moving too fast, his mind too focused. But inside, he was thinking of Lily. He was thinking of how terrified she looked, how small her hand seemed when she clutched Amelia's. He wasn't just saving strangers, he was saving his daughter's world. Then the intercom crackled. A crewman's voice filled the air. "This is a distress call from the Atlantic Star. Engines offline. Request immediate assistance." Jack cursed under his breath. "They're calling for help, but it'll take hours for rescue to reach us." He turned, his face pale but determined. "We don't have hours. If the weather shifts, if the waves pick up, this ship could capsize." Amelia's throat tightened. "Then what do we do?" Jack wiped his hands on his jeans, then met her eyes with steel resolve. "We make our own luck. I can bypass the fried circuits, reroute power directly to the emergency turbines. But it's risky. One wrong move, and the whole system blows. The captain stared at him like he was insane. You'll fry yourself alive. Jack smirked grimly. Wouldn't be the first time I've been close to fire. For the first time in her life, Amelia Hart felt utterly powerless. She had always believed money, influence, and control could fix everything. But now, she stood on a dark ship in the middle of the ocean, clutching a stranger's daughter. And the only hope they had was this single dad who refused to quit. Amelia swallowed hard. Do it. If you believe you can, then do it. Jack gave her the faintest nod, then turned back to the panel. His hands moved with precision, his breathing steady. Sparks flew, wires hissed, alarms blared. But his focus never wavered. As the minutes dragged on, Amelia knelt beside Lily, whispering reassurances she wasn't sure she believed. The little girl leaned into her, trusting her like she'd known her forever. And in that moment, Amelia realized something. Leadership wasn't about titles or money. It was about courage, about holding steady when everything fell apart. And tonight, Jack Miller embodied every ounce of it. Finally, with one last connection, Jack slammed the breaker closed. The ship rumbled, a deep vibration shaking through the steel frame. For a terrifying second, nothing happened. Then, with a thunderous roar, the engine sputtered back to life. The ship surged forward. Lights blazed, systems rebooted. Passengers outside screamed, but this time, in relief. Jack leaned back, his chest heaving, sweat dripping down his face. He'd done it. He'd pulled an entire cruise liner back from the brink. Amelia stared at him, her throat dry. You just saved hundreds of lives. Jack glanced at Lily, who was now crying in relief against Amelia's shoulder. His smile was tired, but genuine. I just kept a promise to my little girl. The captain muttered something under his breath. Half disbelief, half respect. Crew members exchanged stunned glances, and Amelia Hart, who had built her empire on power and dominance, found herself looking at Jack Miller with something she had never felt before: awe. But as the ship steadied and passengers began to cheer, Jack's eyes darkened. He knew the truth. This wasn't over. The ship's systems were fragile, barely holding. If they didn't make it to safe waters soon, all of this could fall apart again. And Amelia? She sensed it too. She leaned close to Jack, her voice low, trembling with an emotion she couldn't name. Tell me what to do. I'll follow your lead. For once, the CEO wasn't the one in control, and the single dad she had doubted was about to prove this was only the beginning. The cheers on the passenger deck thundered like a storm, echoing through the steel walls of the Atlantic Star. But inside the control deck, Jack didn't celebrate. He wiped his brow with the back of his hand, staring at the sparking breaker box that still hissed like an untamed beast. The engines were alive again, yes, but barely. He knew it. And deep down, Amelia sensed it too. Her eyes, usually hard and unshakable, were locked on him, searching for answers she wasn't used to needing from anyone. Jack turned to the captain. She'll hold for a while, but the wiring's a disaster. If another surge hits, we're right back in the dark. And next time, we might not get so lucky. The captain bristled, his pride bruised. We've got trained engineers. Engineers who didn't see what I just saw. Jack snapped, his voice sharp. This ship wasn't built for safety. It was built to look pretty, and if you don't start listening, people will pay the price. The room fell silent. Amelia's assistant, still pale from panic, whispered, Then what do we do? Jack glanced at Lily, who had crept closer, her rabbit still clutched tight. He crouched beside her, softening instantly. "Sweetheart, I need you to stay brave a little longer, okay? Things are going to be loud and scary, but you remember what I told you." Her lip trembled. "That we'll be okay. Because you promised." Jack smiled faintly, brushing a tear from her cheek. "That's right." Then he stood and faced Amelia. "We stabilize the systems, we guide this ship back into calmer waters, and we pray we get close enough for a rescue tug to meet us." Amelia drew in a shaky breath. For the first time in her career, she was completely out of her depth. And yet, strangely, she trusted him more than she'd ever trusted her most expensive advisors. "Tell me what you need." Jack met her eyes. "People who'll listen. No arguments, no ego, just hands ready to work." It wasn't long before Amelia was leading crew members and even passengers into action, delegating calmly, her voice carrying authority, but also urgency. It was strange, she realized, to be taking orders from Jack and then relaying them. But it felt right. This wasn't about pride. This was survival. Hours passed like days. Jack rewired, reconnected, adjusted voltage until his fingers were black with soot. He moved with quiet determination, while Amelia ferried tools, relayed his instructions, and even knelt beside him when his hands shook from exhaustion. At one point, she whispered, "You're risking your life for strangers. Why?" Jack didn't pause his work. "Because my little girl is watching me. And one day, she'll remember if her dad stood tall or ran." That answer landed deep in Amelia's chest, heavier than she expected. She had built her empire on numbers, deals, and control. But here was a man who lived by something purer, something she hadn't thought about in years. Example. Outside storms brewed. The ship rocked violently, waves slamming against the hull. Screams echoed through the corridors as passengers clung to railings. Lily sobbed against Amelia's side, and Amelia, cold, untouchable Amelia Hart, wrapped her arms around the girl and whispered, "He's going to save us. He won't break his promise." It shocked her how much she believed those words. Then, just as Jack tightened the final wire, alarms blared. A surge, massive, angry, rushed through the circuits. Sparks erupted. Fire licked dangerously close. Crew members backed away in fear. "Jack, get back!" Amelia cried. But Jack stood his ground. "If I move now, it'll overload everything." His teeth clenched as the current sparked against his tool, the smell of burning metal filling the air. Sweat poured down his face. His arms shook violently, but he refused to let go. Seconds stretched like hours. Amelia's heart pounded, her nails digging into Lily's shoulder as if anchoring them both. The entire control deck held its breath. Then, with one last push, Jack jammed the connector into place and slammed the breaker down. The lights surged, bright, blinding white. The engines roared with renewed strength. The whole ship trembled like a beast woken from near death, then steadied. The storm outside still raged, but now the ship cut through it, no longer drifting helplessly. It had direction again. Life. Jack collapsed to his knees, gasping for air, his hands blistered from heat. For a terrifying moment, Amelia thought he was gone. She dropped beside him, shaking his shoulders. "Jack, say something." His eyes fluttered open. He gave a weak grin. "Told you, I've been close to fire before." Relief flooded her so hard she almost sobbed. Instead, she helped him to his feet, steadying him as though he were the most important man on the planet. The captain approached, his stern face softened. "Miller, I owe you the lives of everyone on this ship." He extended a trembling hand. "Thank you." Jack didn't take it. Instead, he looked at Lily, who was rushing toward him, tears streaming down her cheeks. He scooped her into his arms, holding her close. "Don't thank me," he murmured. "Thank the reason I never stopped fighting." Passengers later said they'd never forget the sight. A soot-streaked single dad, clutching his daughter in the middle of the control deck while the ship surged safely through the storm. By the time the Atlantic Star limped into port hours later, word had spread across the ship. Jack Miller wasn't just an electrician on vacation. He was the man who saved hundreds of lives when even the captain froze. Reporters swarmed, passengers cheered, and Amelia Hart, iron-willed CEO, stood silently at his side, her eyes glistening with something she rarely let anyone see: respect. As Jack carried Lily down the gangplank, Amelia touched his arm. "You'll say no, I'm sure, but if you ever want a job at my company, the door's open. Men like you don't come around often." Jack smiled faintly. "I appreciate it, but right now, my job's being a dad." Her throat tightened. "That's the best answer you could have given." And with that, Amelia Hart, the woman who had built an empire from steel and fire, watched as Jack and Lily walked away hand in hand. She would never forget the man who saved her life. Not with power, not with wealth, but with courage and kindness. Because in the darkest hour, it wasn't the CEO, the captain, or the money that saved them. It was a single dad's promise to his daughter, kept against all odds.